It has been a strong minute since we've had like a transition chapter that was pretty much just a transition chapter. I think since what before Drasil we had anything that didn't end with some form of direct plot related cliffhanger. Granted, this could easily tie into the plot somehow, like maybe just based off of how Cobra works and how Cobra's been in the story before. We have Cobra, like this is an excuse for Cobra to increase his hearing magic. I know he goes more by Eric now, but I'll always call him Cobra. I think Cobra is just much easier to go by. I mean, obviously the Poison Dragon Slayer Eric doesn't sound very poisony, but with this whole setup, you can see like a logical reason he would be like, "Oh, I trained my hearing magic just in case. So if I run to this dude again, and then maybe in the process his hearing magic just gets, way more unnoticed, way higher range. So it's like, oh, I made it so people, even if they have telepathy, can't really notice me unless I give myself away, kind of thing." And then he ends up overhearing something important, like maybe we have him some for whatever reason be near some of the council members, and they end up just in thought thinking over something really important, and that ends up getting some information to Cobra that tells us about something that's up and coming. Regardless of which, I've said before, I'm never mad at transition chapters that give us solid and very important character information, because it's not just about all its stuff with the plot. I very much enjoyed this chapter. It was really funny and just gave us a lot of really interesting little character bits with Cobra. I just wish we had something involving Ignia. That was just my big thing, as obviously the Ignia agenda is ramping up. Even if we have to wait another 2 weeks for hopefully getting something by then, maybe we'll have to wait one more transition chapter and then we'll get to the Ignia content. But maybe that's just because they're prepping for it and getting it big. But I'm not going to complain at getting some cool stuff with just Cobra in general. I mean, I feel like everybody for the most part likes Cobra. I mean, Cobra's a pretty badass character. He's also got a lot of really good character content. Like I said, even prior to this, his character was just enjoyable. I mean, they expanded a lot upon him in stuff with the anime and with Gonjil's spinoff in Road Knight. How he would go around just busting up any form of human trafficking involving children. I mean, obviously that hits home to anybody that was in the tower, so it just tells you a lot about who he is and what his priorities are. I like that he, unlike Diablos, where Diablos was more directly of a villain group, it was, something trained, or sorry, I misworded that, I meant mix that up. Diablos seemed to be more of a villain group, but was actually more just a misunderstanding between what made them look like they were enemies of Fairy Tail, or it was more, like I said, a misunderstanding and not in reality of what the two guilds represented for themselves. It was more of they just thought that these opposing guilds had beef out for each other. But with the Horacion Sace, they were just outright criminals. I mean, prior with Brain, they were villains, and it wasn't like, oh yeah, they were kids who were not understanding of what they were doing. I mean, he picked them up logically when they were young, and we saw that with Jalal in the anime, that he would go out of his way and go after people at a young age. And then we even had Midnight, who referred to him as his father. So you can kind of just connect a couple pieces, but still, like, as an adult, they very much were fine with criminal activity. I mean, and then when we came around to the Eclipse, not the Eclipse arc, the Key to the Starry Sky arc, I'm trying not to stutter over my words, they were still up to some villainy shit, so it's not like they were over it by then. And then with Cobra, it had more to do with getting back to Cubelius, and then later finding out it's Kinana, and that whole resolving for him. But in this chapter, we have pretty much just him. He's hanging out in Magnolia, or with Magnolia adjacent. Kinana, who's been in the guild a long time. She's a funny character just because if you don't read the manga, it's not even read the manga. It's like if you don't read some of like the little cover guild cards, you weren't gonna ever notice her as a character, because it's not even directly stated. It just kind of goes into mentioning how she could hear this voice saying how he wanted to, you know, like hear what she had to say, hear her voice, and to talk to her, and then you can kind of connect it to how Cobra spoke. And later in the Starry Sky arc, it's fully fleshed out and revealed that she was the snake that Cobra rode, and a wizard turned her into a snake at some point. I wonder, like, I doubt we'll ever get anything like expanding, like meet the wizard who turned her into a snake. I don't imagine it's that important. Like, I could maybe see it like in the anime if they were like want to do the whole episode on this. You know, you can expand like a few minute flashback and show that. That's the only thing I can think of. But other than that, it's gonna be more towards just kind of like, oh yeah, some random ass wizard. But since then, she's worked at the Fairy Tale Guild. She's one of the actual people that stayed during the 7-year time skip. So a big W to her, solid win for her. And now she's, you know, a long-time member. And Cobra is getting slightly nudged by her to join the guild, which pretty interesting. I mean, she's got a solid reason for it. And I mean, he's obviously hanging out down there. She just apparently comes by his place sometimes and does like house chores. I mean, Cobra somehow managed after prison. He snagged like the most stacked woman in the guild, who's apparently a trad wife, and just like comes by to do stuff for him. I really like the little character bit at the start of the chapter 2 where he's just eating poisonous mushrooms. I thought that was a really nice little extra bit of content that we didn't fully have. I mean, obviously he ate poison, like he eats poison whenever he needs to, but the fact he's just like chomping on like a very clear toxic mushroom, I really like that. I thought that was a really nice little character detail at the start of the chapter. But he ends up coming to the guild. I mean, just based off of his personality, I didn't think that he was going to be like, yeah, sweet, sign me up. I imagine at some point he's going to probably either join the guild or be guild adjacent. I'm perfectly fine if he never joins and he's just a character who's kind of like a member but not really, where he's just a person that would come to aid, or he's nearby and then would be a logical addition. There's a strong chance that Mishima's doing this so we can have those 7 Dragon Slayers that fought Acnologi in an upcoming arc. Like, maybe he needed a reason to have all the Dragon Slayers originally ones. I can't sort of say original Dragon Slayers. I mean, he's a 2nd gen, but I mean, you know exactly what is kind of referring to with that. You know, just the original series ones before 100 Years Quest, and have them all in there, and then Diablos members show up. Like, maybe after he's like, maybe at the end of the next chapter, we have like, oh yeah, he joins, and then Diablos and Celine show up, and they're like, hey, you know, we need to talk to your guild members, and it's an important thing to do with Dragon Slayers. We just had Sting and Rogue in the arc, so it's an easy way to connect, like, oh yeah, they're semi-active right now, and it'd be easy to contact them. And we have all the Fairy Tail members just group back up, have all the Dragon Slayers at one spot, and see exactly what the plan is moving forward with them. So it just depends. I could easily see this chapter becoming more plot related. It was just really surprising that it wasn't, you know, it didn't end with something that had to do directly with the story, because that's what we've pretty much had every single one of these transition chapters since Drasil. I mean, we even have like what the stuff with like the hot springs and whatnot after Drasil. It had to do with Ferris, and like, what was it, like ended with Ferris talking about like the moon eating Ellentir and stuff like that. So Cobra's just going around like he's just mind reading members of the guild. I really liked, like, my favorite part of the chapter by far was his interaction, well, semi-interaction with Elfman, just because I didn't expect that, but it makes a lot of sense. Because you have stuff like he you know, goes near Mary Jane and Lisana, and it's just like Lisana thinking about what she's gonna make for dinner, and Lisana is just like, oh yeah, you know, I hope I get curry tonight for dinner. So just regular day-to-day stuff. Julia's thinking about love and Gray, and Kana's just thinking about drinking. You have like Jet and Droid just kind of jealous about Gajil and Levy, you know, Mako and Wakaba just thinking, you know, just old dude stuff. Nothing kind of too crazy, like out of the ordinary when it comes to the day-to-day activities, which I liked, because like you're not directly getting like these characters just saying like, oh yeah, this is my normal gimmick thing, this is my normal kind of go to, you know, my day-to-day thing that I do. It was their inner thoughts. So it's a lot nicer than just having them say it, because it's just showing like how they act regularly, you know, to a new potential member, but also they're just, you know, existing. They're not like letting it completely change up their go-to. I would have liked one character having like a strong interest in a new member. I think that would have been really neat. I mean, sort of with Laxus. I mean, Laxus is like on guild defensive mode, thinking about like, I could kill this guy in 10 seconds. No, I could do it in 5. Laxus, listen, I know you're extremely powerful. I don't think he could 5-second beat Cobra. I think he would definitely beat Cobra with like medium difficulty at the most, but that's just because like Cobra's magic would make it really difficult for him to just get like a straight jump on him, because he's gonna know beforehand. I mean, maybe I'm just overconfident in Cobra, but I feel like 5 seconds, like there's no way. I definitely beat him, but I don't believe 5 seconds. I have some confidence in Cobra. But with Elfman, I really liked how Elfman, because like he was more thinking in protection of his sisters, that Cobra was actually a lot nicer to him about it. He seemed to really like Elfman due to that, and I actually really liked that. I thought that was a really nice little bit of character content, because it makes sense, obviously protecting somebody, even if it's their, even if like obviously Mira Jane can handle herself. It's nice that he's just thinking about protecting people important to him, and that's just something that Cobra could identify with, and because of that, he seems to like Elfman. And out of that, like I said, I think that was my favorite part of the chapter, and I'm really hoping that in the future, even if it's just like on one page, we have like a short little interaction between the two of them, where we can have them just sitting off on the side hanging out, and Elfman's just like, why is this guy so nice to me? And Cobra's just doing his thing. Just knows that Elfman is a genuinely nice guy, and that's that. Like, you don't have to have anything, like, we don't need like a whole bit of them having interactions as like a side chapter, or actually, I mean, like a side chapter, like an extra bit at the end of the volume. I'd be cool with that. That'd be pretty awesome. But in general, I just really liked how their characters were seemingly meshing, and I think that's going to be really cool to see in the future, to see what they do there. So, solid chapter. I mean, it was good. I feel like anybody who's a Cobra fan, or just really wanted some slice of life bit where we just had like, you know, nothing crazy going on, this is the chapter for you. Cobra fans were, I imagine, just over the moon about having a Cobra chapter in general, Cobra potentially relevant in upcoming events in the story, and then just having like a stuff that didn't have anything to do with like the wildness going on in 100 Years Quest. I mean, we got the anime apparently getting announced, something with next week, some form of news, you know, fingers crossed of what exactly it is. I assume it's gonna be, yeah, 100 Years Quest anime date, here's the animation group, you know, some solid good news. I would love for it to, like, even if it's, I want like a general idea. I don't need an exact date, and then I'm hoping the animation studio, and I'm hoping it's a really solid studio, so we can get, you know, hyped up for the upcoming bits. So, I mean, from that, like I said, it wasn't anything crazy. It was more of just like a nice refresher on things, nice cool down, and letting us just have a moment to relax before getting back to the 100 Years Quest. I enjoyed the chapter. Obviously, like I said at the start, I really wanted some Ignia content. I mean, we had probably, in my opinion, one of the most interesting ends to a chapter in a long time with the whole Fire God Castle. A lot of questions around that, a lot of things that I really want to know what's going on with that. But obviously, we gotta wait another 2 weeks before we get around to actually knowing how that's going to play out. But like I said, I will never complain about content like this, just because it wasn't a nonsense chapter where we just had some, like, a bunch of gags. It had, I would assume, story importance once we get around to why we had this chapter. And because I mean, like, this could have easily been a side chapter, like an extra at the end of a volume, but you don't have to read those are an additional content. So I assume that this has some form of reason to be in here. and like in the direct story, like some form of reason to go, okay, yeah, I'll read this chapter, and you know, remember it going into the next arc. I assume it could just be a fun side chapter, which I'm perfectly okay with. You know, if we could, because I think Cobra as a character, just as guild adjacent, I think is really cool, because it would mean that you always have somebody just nearby listening and being able to detect danger before most of the characters because of his hearing magic. Like, what if he sets up a way to almost have like a detection of magic? Not really like, oh yeah, I sense a powerful presence nearby or whatever, magical energy. It's like he can selectively filter words. Like if somebody just enters Magnolia with malefic thoughts towards the Fairy Tale Guild, if he automatically, his hearing magic will just hone in on that or something like that. I think that'd be really cool, because you'd always have somebody, like I said, who's ready and you know, awaiting potential danger, but also you would have a guy who has the whole setup to where they're not a direct guild member, but you know they're around. You know that this is a force that is always in the wings. I think is a really cool this concept for him. So we'll see what happens with Cobra in the future. Like I said, I enjoyed this chapter. I'm really looking forward to seeing the potential of where it goes. But even if it just amounts to seeing him with Elfman at some point in like a fun little character interaction bit, I'm perfectly okay with that, because like I said, I really enjoyed I enjoy stuff that I don't expect when it comes to the characters, and things that just give us information to expand upon them and to make us understand them more on a day-to-day. So big plus. Like I said, I imagine most people I imagine really enjoyed this. It was fun, it was relaxing, and it wasn't anything just over the top crazy that we all had to like comb over 20 times to try and find the small nudges and secrets that Mishima lays out. Anyway, other than that, tell me what your thoughts about this chapter were. Tell me what your thoughts about Cobra are, if you think that this is going to just be a fun side chapter, or if this is going to have anything to do with upcoming events. Yeah, I would definitely like to hear what you have to say. So comment below, and I'll talk to you guys later. Hopefully the next time we get a chapter, it'll have, even if it's just the last 2 pages or something, last page, something involving Igni or Igni's crew. I'd love that. I'd be perfectly fine even if it's like on the last page of the next chapter we have like a member of Fire and Flames who we just haven't seen ever before, and it's hyped and brought up. Maybe. We'll see. Anyway, other than that,